You've tuned in to the Hawaii Healing Network, and I am your host, Kristina Mekdeci. Hello, today our guest is Darlene Waddell, who is trained by Drunvalo Melchizedek in the School of Remembering. Darlene, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me to be with you today.
Darlene, can you tell us about your spiritual journey and what led you to the School of Remembering?
Well, I think my spiritual journey goes back to many, many lifetimes, but if we just focus on this one, I've had a yearning since I was probably 6 or 7 years old to understand the profundities of the universe, I guess is the best way to say it. I was a kid who asked a lot of questions. Why are we here? What are we supposed to do? I began to study early on as a teenager the writings of Edgar Cayce. And through Edgar Cayce's work, which correlated directly with what I was doing as a registered nurse at the time, because he himself was a healer. So I used a whole lot of what I learned from him to incorporate that into my nursing throughout the years. And from there, I was introduced to Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yes.
And I did some very intense training through Self-Realization Fellowship. And those were my years of learning what it meant to be still, what it meant to go inside, and what is this thing everybody talks about called meditation. And of course, that was big in the 70s. Everybody was talking about meditation at the time.
Tell us how you brought your spirituality into your nursing career.
Well, let's just say that it changed my way of practicing a great deal. And I found very quickly that working inside of the hospital where everything was already mapped out in a very allopathic way was not my path. So I spent the majority of the time I spent working with mothers and babies in the community. I lived in the state of Virginia at the time. And, they don't give mothers a whole lot of medication. So that really fit for me. It was a healthy journey. It was a beautiful journey. And of course, the witnessing of every birth is the witnessing of another miracle. So that is the majority of my 35 years of nursing, is working with moms and babies, which is also what I did through my massage work, pregnancy and infant massage as well. So it all kind of fit together and intertwined very nicely, and it's been a wonderful journey.
How were you led to Drunvalo's School of Remembering?
Well, very interestingly, my youngest son, who was in a Waldorf school at the time, was learning about sacred geometry, which I had always had interest in, but had never really had the time to dive very deeply. And I was in massage school at the time. He was a young boy. I was introduced to Drunvalo Melchizedek's Flower of Life books, which came out in the late 90s. That was right about the time that I was going to massage school. So I just gobbled up the Flower of Life. My son was real interested in learning all of it too because of the Waldorf school that he was in. And we spent a great deal of time in the late 90s, early around 2000, just studying his two Flower of Life books were amazing. We just couldn't get enough of it. And from there, I just continued to follow his work, and his next work with Earth, Sky, Heart was much more connecting with like the indigenous peoples do, connecting with Mother Earth and Father Sun, and connecting with yourself as the divine child that we are. It brought together that trinity, if you want to call it that trinity that you can bring right down here on Earth when you create a love between Mother Earth, Father Sun, and yourself. For me, that was a very deep and profound meditation that I learned. The indigenous peoples all over the world had been doing this, and I knew that as a child because I grew up around a lot of indigenous people. That led me further then into his work when he came out with his Living in the Heart. So I just continued to follow his work. Eventually I said, you know what, I need to teach this. I really feel called to share this wherever I can. It's not just about my own learning experience. People need to know. People want to know. They just don't know where to find it sometimes.
For those of our listeners who are unfamiliar with Drunvalo, can you describe who he is and the work he does?
Well, he started out as a physics major, and he very quickly found that modern day physics taught here in America is rather in the box, if you will. So he ended up he has still, of course, he has a physics major, but he ended up graduating from college with an art a degree in art, and that was his introduction to the right brain. Of course, he's brilliant, and so most of the information is coming from the left brain. But he was able to move further into the heart work later on, and also into art and different things like that, which are very much of the right brain. So he was able to create a very nice balance between the polarities in his brain, and his work just continued to evolve as a result of that. He has spent more than 40 years studying the human consciousness revolution. So he's on top of what's happening in terms of our evolution and our process of ascension as we move out of the third dimension and make our way into the fourth and fifth dimension, which is happening as far as the planet goes. It's already happening. And really all we need to do is understand how we can move with her. She's in charge of it all. Mother Earth is controlling the ascension. We are not. But we can ready ourselves so that when she goes, we know what's happening and we can also go.
In Drunvalo's workshops, do you find more men or women attending?
When he first started his heart workshops, it was primarily women, probably 80% to 20. So they began to teach them Merkaba work first. It always was moving into the heart, living in the heart, creating from the heart. But he brought the Merkaba work forth because men are very mathematical, they're very logical. And the ascended masters were attempting to get more men involved in the work, and it worked. So I find now that the ratio is probably more like 60% women, 40% men. More and more men are coming to workshops. I have had some workshops that are all women. I had one recently in Indonesia where there were 9 women and 6 men. It's different everywhere you go. We had a number of men in India as well. So it depends on where you are.
What are you noticing here in the United States with these workshops?
Probably it is still more women. On Maui, not quite as much, because men here I think are probably a little bit more evolved than some other places. On the mainland, I do see that it is more women.
It's good to know that Drunvalo teaches this workshop in a way that makes it easy for men to learn, even if they are primarily left brain thinkers.
An important thing for men to remember is that they truly are, in terms of their chromosome and their own biological makeup, they are as much female as they are male, in the sense that their chromosomes are made up that way, 13 and 13. It is, I think, the biggest shift that needs to happen within the men, and of course we incorporate this into the workshop, is that they're in touch with the feminine side of themselves, and that they know that it's there. It doesn't make them less of a man to be familiar with that side and to accept that side of themselves. And I've seen this in other countries, India, Indonesia, Canada, more than here in the United States. But again, it's the upbringing. A lot of the men were brought up, to don't shed tears, and they weren't in touch with the feminine side of themselves, and if they were, it wasn't a comfortable thing. It wasn't talked about very much. Now it's more talked about. People are raising their children different. They see that the boys don't get any particular privileges over the girls. They're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
They all have great value and worth. So kids are being brought up differently, and their thinking, of course, is different. They will be a reflection of what they're taught.
This upcoming class is going to be held in haiku, and it's called the Awakening of the Illuminated Heart Workshop. Will you tell our listeners what this is about?
Drunvalo's work, as I said, has evolved over the years. We are going to cover briefly one of the energy systems in this universe that we live in, which is the flower of life, and everything that comes out of that one energy system. And it's only one of 13 in our universe. So we will spend a little bit of time on the geometry behind our universe and what that brings for us, because the Merkaba work revolves around that. But his work has primarily evolved into the heart. He is teaching what he refers to as the Jesus way, which is no different than Buddhist or Hindu or any other way. It is called the way of love. It is not called the way of Christianity or Buddhism or any other religion. It's simply called, it's what they all taught, the way of love. So he's teaching people how to take that longest journey they will ever take in their life. What we do is incorporate a very ancient system of knowledge where we create a coherence between the brain and the heart. We do a tantric heart method, which is very, very old, and it brings the brain out of its polarity and into this unity. When you can create that through this tantric method, and you bring the brain a little bit out of its polarized state into that more unified field, then from that place, we create in the tiny space of the heart, and we also activate the Merkaba from that place, which is our light body.
I was introduced to Drunvalo on Jennifer McLean's Healing with the Masters, and I followed it was a somewhat guided journey into the small space of the heart. And I was fortunate. I got in very quickly. I felt everything that he said you'd feel and experience. And my body was filled with love. I felt the expansiveness and the outward, flow of infinity. Just as soon as I got there and I thought about it, my mind kicked me out.
There's a part of the workshop where we help people to get in touch with and be familiar with the different brain waves. And in this particular case, we're most interested in what we refer to as the alpha waves in our brain, because the alpha waves in our brain are waves of peace and harmony, of joy and bliss. We're still in that beta, that awake state. We're not in that deep sleep state. We're consciously aware, and we're purposely creating alpha so that we can bring our brain into that blissful, joyful place, which is what the heart knows. The heart already knows that. And then through the tantric method that we do, we can then bring that brain, as I said, out of the more polarized state. When you can do that in the meditations, it's much easier to stay in the heart for a longer period of time, because you're changing literally the polarity inside of your brain for that time. Then the key, of course, is to take it from your meditations and practice it in your everyday life. You practice saying in the tiny space or the sacred space of the heart more often while you're awake, while you're doing things, while you're active throughout the course of the day.
How are you successfully doing that? Is that something that we would learn in the class?
Yes, it's a matter of staying consciously aware, and with deliberation in the beginning, you're taking yourself back to that place. You're asking your questions from that place. You're making decisions from that place. So your life, when you begin to play in that playground more, then of course it's much easier to find your way back. And you can begin to do it in states of awakeness and outside of meditation. And it's like anything else. The more we practice it, the more we can be present with it.
If a person comes to this workshop, which is happening July 30th, for 4 days, and it will end on August 2nd, what would they expect to experience and learn?
Well, one of the most important things that I think we can get from this is that we're going to be learning to be in touch with a part of ourself that we're not normally in touch with, which is referred to as our higher self. So that when we can learn how it is that we can quickly connect with a higher aspect of our own self, then we know that we can be in a more altruistic place, where we're getting our questions asked, and perhaps where we're meeting some of our greater decisions in life. So that would be one of the early steps. We also spend some time becoming familiar with what does it feel like to feel the energy that we know is in our aura, that we know is in our energy field, and the angel energy that we know is all around us all the time. How does it feel to be in touch with these energies that we know are there, but we just don't spend much time intending to feel or sense what that is all about, what that feels like. So we just can continue to progress from becoming familiar with our own self on the outside, and then going inside and seeing what's happening inside of our own body, traveling and moving with our consciousness within our own body, which of course is going to make our journey into the heart that much more simple. A really big aspect of the workshop as well is that we move things out of the way, limited belief systems, woundedness, mental and emotional traumas. We make space for healing, and we work in a group, and we do a very powerful sound healing session on the second day that allows people to release what is no longer serving them for their highest good. Because oftentimes that's the only reason that they can't get into the heart or can't be in the heart, is there's something there that just doesn't feel inviting. So we get those things out of the way, the limited belief systems that we know we all have from our upbringing, any woundedness that may be there. And we don't pretend to be able to heal anyone and everyone in one day. Sometimes that would be a traumatic experience in and of itself for some people. We do what we are ready for. We bring the biology back to its original blueprint as much as we possibly can, and we move forward from a place of a clean slate as much as we feel like we are ready to allow. Whatever we let go of, we make space for something new to come, and then we begin to put new things in that are going to be much more positive, like some of the pictures that I sent to you.
Mm-hmm.
We show those graphics during the workshop, and we remind people of the power that they have within themselves.
We are great manifestors.
That is exactly where day 3 of the workshop goes. We're spending more time in the heart, and we're learning exactly that. We're learning to remember, so that's the key word here, really. It's not a workshop where I'm going to be teaching anybody anything at all, really. I'm going to be calling upon their memory, because they already know this and they've already done it hundreds of times. And that's how we got here. We wouldn't be here on Earth if we didn't have our Merkaba to have arrived.
That's right.
So we're going to spend some time finding out how to get into the tiny space of the heart once we've cleared the way. See what expansiveness is in that place, like you spoke about. How do we co-create now? How do we bring something into manifestation? We do it with the heart. We don't do it with the brain, because the brain is in polarity. And from that place, once we've arrived in this sacred and tiny space of the heart where we know we can make a better world, co-create our lives in a more positive way, we activate our Merkaba from that sacred space.
I want to explain, too, that after listening to Drunvalo's information, I really understood what he was talking about. I spent a day trying to get an answer to something in my mind. And it didn't matter how many times I looked at it. There would always be a black and a white, a right and a wrong. And there would never be a solid answer because of the polarity of the brain. And I thought, how interesting is that when you try to solve things in your brain, you're always going to get two sides of the coin.
Absolutely. Not to mention that you could certainly create with the brain. We've been doing it for a very long time, but you may get the polar opposite, which means if you're asking for rain, for example, you may get a flood.
That's right.
Where if you're coming from the heart, which only knows unity, it only understands what's positive, pure, necessary. There's no fear there. There's only love there. All is in balance and harmony. So it knows exactly what to create. It wouldn't create so much rain that there would be a flood, or so little that it didn't water the plants. It would know exactly how much would needed to be created.
Which means the heart is in constant balance.
The heart is in absolute purity and harmony. That's the one place that we can trust. It's the only place that we can trust. We'll never be able to trust the mind. Not really.
So finally, I want to know, Darlene, how has your life changed since you have gone to the School of Remembering?
Well, I'll back up just a little bit in that I had done some work, as I mentioned, for years with Paramahansa Yogananda. And so through his work and through Self-Realization Fellowship, I had already learned a great deal about meditation and pranic breathing, what it means to breathe prana, and also Kriya Yoga, which is the movement of energy in the spine, in one's body. So this does not differ from that a whole lot, to tell you the truth. So it was no surprise to me that I went from here to Drunvalo's Awakening the Illuminated Heart work. There's a great deal of similarity between this work and Kriya Yoga. But what I found is that it gets you there much more quickly. In other words, the Ascended Masters are giving us now in 2000 plus what we are ready for. And when Yogananda was alive in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, he was giving us what we were ready for. We are now living and learning things so fast that we don't need years and years and years and years to work on this anymore. And we really may not have years and years and years and years. The earth changes are happening at a really rapid speed if we just look around. we are learning more in just a week's time that we would have otherwise spent. Heart Math Institute is a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm.
What they're learning in a month's time would normally be 10 years, literally, worth of knowledge and education and research and so forth. So things are speeding up. Everyone feels it, everyone knows it. The solar flares are amping up, our DNA is shifting. People may not be able to describe it the way that I am, but they feel it. They know something big is coming and something big is happening. And maybe they feel like sleeping more, or maybe they just feel disoriented at times. It can manifest itself in different ways because it's a lot of energy being downloaded if we're not sure what to do with it. What I've gotten out of the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop is, what do you do with it? The downloads are coming. How do we bring that in? How do we assimilate that inwardly and make the best of it, make it work for us in the most positive way? And that is through creating in the tiny space of the heart. Because it can, there's the vastness of the energy for creation coming from that place. The universe is inside of the tiny space of our heart, where all things are possible. So none of those things feel overwhelming when you know how to, in what direction to take them and what to do with it.
So I'm very excited to take the Awakening of the Illuminated Heart workshop. And I really am excited for his upcoming work that I believe he's going to teach online. I understand this is new information he received, and you have to take the one workshop before you can take this next one he's going to teach. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, his new work now is called Cosmic Grace. And it would not make a whole lot of sense for somebody to take that workshop if they had never taken the Awakening the Illuminated Heart. So, what he does is he spins off of everything that comes from the Awakening the Illuminated Heart without repeating a whole lot of that because he has a lot more information. He has gathered together with 40 scientists from all over the world. And one of the newest discoveries is the Berkman currents that you're hearing him talk so much about. And basically, what that is about is that they now know that regardless of the fact that the sun is 92 million, 93 million light years away from us, Earth and us, that information between Mother Earth and Father Sun travels and arrives instantaneously. There is no time lapse. They've made some huge discoveries in time, space, and everything around it. So we now know that that too is a manifestation of ours. It doesn't exist. So now they are closer to understanding parallel universes, what it means to coexist in parallel universes simultaneously, that everything past, present, and future are happening at one time. This is huge information coming out of that discovery of the Berkman currents and gravity, which is now being used. Gravity is being, it's understood as a living field, and they're using it for projects. The next project is communication. It's being anticipated that within no time we will not need these iPads, we won't need these iPhones. We will be able to use gravity to communicate with one another. In other words, we're going to remember our telepathic capabilities. And we're not, and this is all happening now. So there's big things unfolding, big things.
I went to look at the class and I was scrolling through his website and I thought, oh, I just left Santa Cruz and I missed this workshop, and I kept scrolling down and then it showed up that you were teaching it in haiku, and I was so grateful. So I am looking forward to being there in the class. Now, for the listeners, this class is happening in haiku and you still have an opportunity to sign up, and I will put the link on the website on the end of this video. And you can also go to the Hawaii Healing Network on Facebook, and I have posted the poster on there, which talks about the date and times. And it starts July 30th. And starts at, you said 10:30 until
10:30. It will be at the Temple of Peace in Haiku.
And how long does it last each day?
Each day is going to be approximately 8 hours or 8.5 hours, depending on how long of a lunch break we take. So it is 4 full days. It's a lot of information that we're trying to, again, this is really trying to compact everything he's been up to for 40 years into about 4 days. So we're going to be hitting on mostly the highlights, but it's a full 4 days for sure. A lot of the workshop is experiential. This is not something where somebody is just sitting and listening to knowledge and going on and on and on and on. It's not about me, again, teaching anyone anything. It's about everybody igniting the memory within their own self. And they're going to do that through a whole lot of experiential work during the course of the 4 days. So it's much more than listening to a speaker, far more than that. Every participant will be doing exercises and meditations throughout the 4 days so that each day unfolds into the next to prepare for their own healing, to prepare for releasing of limited belief systems, to prepare for their space in the heart and make the journey in, to have their own experiences through 10 or 15 minutes of meditation so that we can share and see what does that feel, what is happening for each person in the group. The group energy is very important in this work, and then again finishing up with the Merkaba work and knowing that everybody feels like they've activated that seed that we all know we have inside of us.
What would I need to, coming to the workshop, bring or be prepared to have? Because it sounds like there's a lot of, like you said, experiential moments that we're going to have. How would you dress? What do you need?
The dress is very casual and comfortable because, again, we're going to be doing exercises. Some of them are going to be sitting, some on the floor, and we'll be in different positions throughout the 4 days, some on a table. So casual dress, and we will provide snacks for the morning and afternoon breaks, but everybody will be on their own for lunch. So we'll make way for about an hour each day or so. There are some restaurants in Haiku, or people can bring their lunch if they like. We do ask everybody to bring an item or however many items that they would like to leave on an altar space and let them be infused with the energy of the space for the 4 days and all that we're going to be doing, and then take those items at the end of the 4th day to their own altar at home or wherever they want to take them, knowing that they've been imbued with all of those energies of the group. We also ask everybody to bring a pen and a notebook so that they can do their note-taking, since Drunvalo does not permit recording of the workshop material. It's all copyright protected. Many people have wanted to record, but he really does prohibit it, so unfortunately we can't do that, but we'll take notes, and anytime we're doing the meditation and it's not a proper time for someone to be taking notes, I will forward those on in an email after the workshop is over, so that everybody has everything that they have experienced, either in their own writing or in a platform that I have put together so that they can continue to practice.
And I know that the class is July 30th. What's the deadline if we would like to sign up?
Well, I would prefer that everybody be signed up at least by the day before, later than the 29th. And it can be up to the date. That's just perfectly fine. We are Maui people. We tend to be, slow pace. We just like to take life as it is, and we go with the flow. And sometimes the flow takes you right there. So anything is possible. But the 29th, the evening of the 29th would probably be the last registration.
Well, Darlene, thank you so much for being on the Hawaii Healing Network. And I'm so excited to meet you in person to take the workshop.
I'm looking forward to meeting you too, Kristina. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And I look forward to being able to work with you in the future in terms of awakening the illuminated heart and even the extraocular vision that we're doing with the children.
And that will be something coming up. So always stay tuned to the Hawaii Healing Network. And like I said, I will post the link at the bottom of this website so that you can sign up for the Awakening of the Illuminated Heart workshop, which is going to be this July 30th in Haiku. Aloha!
Aloha!
For more information or to sign up for the Awakening the Illuminated Heart workshop in Maui, Hawaii, July 30th to August 2nd, find us on Facebook or find the link below this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again next time. Aloha.